What's up everybody, it's Owen from Devil's Watches again, back with number 4 of our videos on YouTube. Today we're going to talk about investing in watches, and is it something you can do? Is it worth doing? What are the chances of it actually happening? What should you buy? What should you look for when you're trying to invest in watches? And a few other things. So first of all, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go check us out on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever you want. We're doing a sale for Valentine's, so it's 25% off on the website when you use the promo code Valentine's. So check that out. You can get a beautiful watch like this for your boyfriend, or the rose gold for your girlfriend. We also have our Kickstarter going, so please check out the Kickstarter. Just check Devil Watches on Kickstarter. Now let's get into the video. So, should you invest in watches, or is buying watches a good investment? Most people see the prices of these vintage watches and they say, well, like, this watch was worth 10,000 last year, now it's 20,000, and in 10 years time it's worth 60,000. People say, oh, making money, you get to wear one of your favorite things and you make money. But when it comes to investing in watches, it's probably one of the worst investments you can do. Like, don't get into watches or buy watches for the sake of making money. You buy watches because you love them. It's like, I always think like vintage watches are like vintage cars. You buy a vintage car, you know you're going to have problems with it. You know it's going to break your heart 5 or 6 times, but you love it. You don't mind putting the money into it because you know, like, you get that experience and that enjoyment, and maybe in a couple of years you can pass it down to a son or daughter or whoever you like. So don't get into watches for just for money. Number 2, what is the price range of a watch that will hold its value? So the main things with vintage watches is, if you can buy a vintage watch, wear it for 2 or 3 years and sell it for a similar price, you're winning. So a lot of people will buy watches. If you're buying a $200, $300 watch, $400, $500 watch, you're probably not going to be able to resell it. Maybe if you buy a $500 watch, in a few years time you might be able to sell it for $200, you know, something like Seiko or something like that. But if you want to buy a watch that you want to get money back from, or you want to sell it on later to trade up to something else, you want to be spending at least €750. So if I was going to buy a watch that I want to keep and I want to maybe sell in the future to make more money, I'd be looking at the kind of $750 to $1,500 price range, where you could get a lot of nice Omegas or similar watches like that. So that's the kind of watches you want to be buying if you want to get into vintage watches and you want to buy a watch that is going to hold its value, and you will be able to trade it up or maybe swap it for something else later in the future. So another thing about vintage watches, when you're buying a vintage watch, like a vintage car, these things need to be serviced. So there's no point saying, oh, I got the best deal on a $1,000 watch, and you don't look into it, you don't see its service history. Then when you get that watch in 2 weeks, it's losing time and you're wondering why, and you bring it to you. If you're buying beginner watches, you probably don't have your watch guy or your watch specialist, so you bring it there to whatever one in the city and they charge you €400 for a service. So you're never going to make money on that watch, and if you do sell it even for close to the price, you're still, a big chunk of the profit is gone, or the margin is gone. So really, when you're buying a watch, make sure it's serviced, make sure it's in good condition, make sure it's keeping it time. Maybe you could say to the seller, can you have like a month where you can return the watch, and then you can keep time, and if it is losing a lot of time over that month, you can bring it back. And you know, you set this out at the start, so he knows, you know, everyone knows what the situation is. But yeah, so be careful with that. Other things you can do, what to look for. So if you are going to buy a watch, like a lot of watches now, we're talking high-end watches that make money. I know in recent times, everything about the last 10 years, the Paul Newman Daytona has just, like, it's, you can't even buy them, and if you can, you're paying 3 times what the price the last person bought them. That's every time they sell. But certain things to look out for in the watch industry now, if you are buying a vintage watch or you want to try and find something that is a good investment. Things that are hot now are still the panda dolls are still kind of a thing, but what I see in the watch industry now, which is names. Names are selling. So if a watch has a nickname, it has some sentimental value towards it. The same with the Paul Newman. If you say, "Oh, what's the hot watch?" and someone goes, "Oh, it's the Rolex 1161 or something, or Omega 1234." It doesn't have that appeal that you say, "Oh, the Speedmaster, the Snoopy or the Tintin." So there's a few watches now that look for the nicknames. If watches have nicknames, it means that they have a story behind them. I know you see a lot of old Moon watches with Snoopy, Disney. There's some Mickey Mouse team watches, and they're the watches now that are kind of hot. So look out for the names. You kind of have to follow what's happening in the industry. So like the Steve McQueen's, the James Bond watches, all these are shooting up. So try and find something that has a story behind it, and maybe look into that and try and keep it for a few years. But as I said, with watch investing, it's not the best thing to do. If you don't know what you're doing, don't try and make money. Try and enjoy the watch. So another thing to do when you're buying vintage watches, which happens a lot of people, is you have to buy the seller. Don't buy the watch. Like, there's no point buying a watch that you think, oh, it's the best thing, and you don't know who you're buying it off, where he is. He's selling it from a house in a country the other side of the world. If I buy a $1,500 watch from a guy in Texas, and he sends the watch to me in Ireland, and it doesn't work, or maybe it's a fake, or it serves €1,500, it's not work on to America to chase this guy down. It's not enough money that you're kind of going to put that effort in. You can send emails back and forth, but he just has to ignore your emails, and even what you spend on phone calls, you'd rack that up quick enough. So buy the seller. I know we had Chris Essery, I think that's how it's pronounced it, in Australia. One of the most dangerous things, I think, is people buying watches off Facebook groups. I don't get it. I'm in a few big Facebook groups, like watch groups, and I see people saying swap this, swap that, or what's for sale, and to me it's just a no-go. Stay away from it unless it's your small local watch group, like Dublin watch group that I meet up at, or if London has one, or whatever city you're in, and you go to them meets. Yeah, maybe swap with friends there, but try and stay away from buying watches on Facebook, Instagram groups. Don't be buying a watch through Instagram through messengers and sending money to bank accounts. Try and stick with the main websites like the Chrono24, or even if you like, Theo and Harris sell nice vintage watches. Stick with the names that are kind of brick and mortar, or even you'd be surprised how many nice vintage watches are in the city. If you go into the city, and most areas in the city have a kind of like a historical, antique kind of part of the town. And if you go there, you'll be surprised what you'll see in shop windows for a good price. You might spend, say, a $1,500 watch. It might cost you $1,500 in the shop. You might get it on eBay for $1,100-1,200. Is it worth it? In my opinion, yes, because if something goes wrong in a month, 2 months, 3 months, you can go back to that store. You know where the store is. You speak the same language. You can go in. You can fight your corner. And usually, if these are respected watch shops, they'll look after it. So they're the main things. I'll just go over them. Price range, when you're looking to buy your first watch that's going to hold its value, you need to be spending €750 plus. Can you make money on buying and selling vintage watches? Yes, you can. Should you? No, not really. Buy for yourself. Buy to pass it down. If you buy a watch that you love and you value and you cherish, pass it down. Don't sell it on. Unless you're selling it on to get another Grail watch or the next level up. Don't sell it just for money. What to look for? Names, the nicknames is the big thing now. Everything is nicknamed. They have the Seiko Turtle, the Sumo, everything is named. So if you find a watch that has a nickname or has just got a nickname, try and hop on that name, and you should do okay. But Yeah, be careful of services when you're buying vintage watches. You don't want to lose all your profit or all the value of the watch just putting it through a service. And buy the buyer. Don't be like the guys over in Australia on the biggest watch group on Facebook in Australia. Some guy bought sent 15,000 to buy a watch off this guy, and he got his watch and he only realised it was fake because another friend had a real Daytona, I think it was, and showed him that, and he noticed the difference. So stay away from Facebook groups. Don't buy watches off Instagram, and yeah, just buy the buyer, not the watch. So that's all. Please, I know this is the longest video so far, 10 minutes. So please subscribe, like, comment below if you want any other videos. If there's anything else that you'd like me to talk about or get my opinion on. But please check out the Instagram. That's where we do most of our posts. The Kickstarter is still live. We got Friday week, so I think there's 8 more days to go on that. The best dress watch I get for €75. Retail price be 119, so get on that. And don't forget the Valentine's sale. So all watches 25% off. Use the promo code Valentine's. And yeah, till next week. Enjoy.